Hi everyone, welcome back to Total War Therapy. I wanna tell you that I studied a lot and now I'm ready to make the tier ranking list of Ogre Kingdoms. But before that, I'm happy to announce that in the last post community you chose the War Machines by Chaos Dwarfs. So the first video of next week will be a guide, a full detailed guide of any War Machine of Chaos Dwarfs. So please don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy my content and we can start. The criteria will be the same as always. The price value, so not only the worth of a unit, but also its price and the building required to recruit it. Then the cost opportunity, if there are other units better at the same role, and the management, so how much effort is required to use that unit effectively. The first section will be dedicated to Gnoblars. Now, Gnoblars are a very unique category of units within the Ogre Kingdoms roster. The generic Gnoblars are for me overpowered units. Why that? Because they are easy to recruit, you need just the settlement or the camp, and their price is very little. Then there is the filler role part. Even if the Ogre Kingdoms overall they look this sturdy, tough, strong guys, they're actually very weak. Especially the bull variants. So you need in the early campaign some Gnoblars to absorb the damage dealt to your army. So they are an essential part of your formation, of your composition, and that's why since you don't have other option to fill the same role, I have to put them in the overpower section. The Gnoblars Trappers are for me a Chaos War Shrine unit, that in my vocabulary it means not worthy to recruit. Why that? Yeah, they are one of the first missile units in the Ogre Kingdoms campaign, but at the same time they just don't fill that role effectively. They don't deal any damage, and in the composition overall of the Ogre Kingdoms, they're just not necessary. Even if they have Stalk, what you are using them for? To address some artillery, you have another option for that, you have Saber Tusk, Blood Vultures. That's why for me they are completely not recruitable. You should never recruit them, even if they can have some nice ability that you can use in very thematic rosters, but unless that, just don't waste important slots for them. The Pickback Riders, it's a hard choice for me, because I didn't use a lot of them in the game, because you need a specific building to recruit them, and yeah, it's true that they are stronger than normal Gnoblars, but they have less number, they have more charge, that it's of debatable effectiveness in the Ogre Kingdom, since already Ogre are the charge part of the formation, of the composition, so why you need even Gnoblars to do that? They are good against anti-large, but I mean, we cannot say that Ogre Kingdoms have a problem with large things, with cavalry and so on. So as I said in another video, I mean, they're just useful to protect other Gnoblars. Artillery, okay, but yeah, I mean, I think a bit here is more than enough. It's not an outstanding unit, but they fill their very specific role in this roster. Now, the second part will be about Ogre Kingdoms. That is the core of your army, even if they are monstrous infantry. The first unit, the Ogre Bulls, for me are a C tier unit. I mean, not that much worthy to recruit. If you need urgently because you are in a crisis scenario, someone is attacking you and you need to recruit some Ogre very fast, they are the only choice available. But except the situation, if you have more than one turn, it's worthy for me to spend more money and time to invest in other kinds of Ogre. For example, the dual weapon variants. They have better stats than normal Ogre, and they are not so hard to recruit. The price is kind of the same, but in this case you have an actual Ogre that deals damage. And then we have the version with shield. That for me is a A tier unit, because it's basically your front line. They are shielded, they have more defense, so that can be helpful in many other ways, and you can start to not need Gnoblars anymore, because they can defend themselves very well. The Iron Guts for me are overpowered units. They are probably the best cost effective Ogre Kingdom units Ogre Ogre units in the roster. Why that? Because they have a big ton of armor. That is something rare in the Ogre Kingdoms roster. And this armor helps them in many situations. They are not shielded, but with the armor they have to worry less about arrows and so on, and their stats are overall better. And you can recruit them with the building of Ogre Kingdoms. You don't need to move on an advanced building, and this is very important, guys, because to recruit then Maneaters and then to move to the other version of Maneaters, you need a lot of time. But for Iron Guts, you just need the basic Ogre building, and they are better than all the other and any stats. They're anti-infantry, armor piercing, and I mean, so they are the perfect choice even for a late campaign scenario. Now let's talk about Maneaters, that are a lot at this point in the game. The normal version for me is another C tier unit, like the Ogre Bulls. They do their job, but I would wait a little more and recruit directly the other version of Maneaters that they have more specific role. So I just don't like to recruit this unit. There are better options if you just wait a little more. For example, the shielded version, that for me is a A tier unit, because it's the front line for more the mid late game. They are better than Ogre at everything, and they do their job very well. They are very defensive, and yes. The anti-large version for me is an overpowered unit. Why that? I know that this choice can look a little confusing, because if you play against, one example, Norska, against King Wolves, against Beastmen, Minotaurs, anti-large of course, every time you're dealing against some anti-large monsters or anti-large cavalry, anti-large monstrous infantry, you don't need only a monstrous infantry like the ogres overall, but you need a ogre infantry specialized against large units, and they are the only choice available. Then there are other that we talk later, but they are probably the best and the only with the solid like an infantry that can deal with this kind of units. So in a late campaign, for me, they're just essential to protect this part of my formation by any monstrous infantry, anti-large, and any kind of that. The Ogre Maneaters with pistol for me are a B tier units. First, I have to tell you that this is probably my favorite unit in this roster. I love their armor piercing missile power before the melee, with an actually decent range before the other infantry front line is engaging. I mean, they are cool by any aspect, but I still don't feel they are that worthy for their price, for their building, because they still require a 5th tier building, and it's not okay, it's not cool. So a B tier is enough. It's a unit I suggest to recruit in the very late campaign, but not that necessary, okay? The Golg Maneaters for me are another overpowered units. They're so strong. They have vanguard deployment that it's not an attribute to ignore, because you can deploy them closer to the enemy, so they can just sneak around and attack the back of your enemy army. They have more armor than normal Maneater, and they deal far more damage. So yeah, the perfect choice for a late game campaign. You can use it as a front line and everything, but I really suggest you to take advantage of the stealth attribute, because an ogre with the stealth attribute, it's something insane. Now let's move to the missile units of this roster. Let's start with the lead belchers. For me are a overpowered unit. No, maybe not overpowered, they are more A tier units. They are the only kind of missile infantry option, if they are not actually infantry and they are an artillery piece. At the end they are an artillery piece. They can easily annihilate any kind of units. They have a very good range, explosive damage. they do their job very good, and I'm sad that Ogre Kingdoms don't have many missile options. But yeah, for me they are a must in any army. Their only problem is that with some like very light infantry, they hardly do damage, and they're very weak. I mean, if engaging combat, even with the very weak mid-shield units, they take a lot of damage. And I mean, why I'm paying for some big dudes like that if they cannot I cannot rely on them if there is anything physical. So 8 here is more than enough, even if they're probably OP, but yeah, I feel more comfortable with 8 tier. The Gnoblars catapult for me is a good choice, but still a B tier units. You need the Gnoblars building, and I mean, for me this is a problem because it's not the kind of building I prioritize, but they still give you the range superiority. You need just the 3rd tier building, and they are okay. The only problem is when you play in high difficulty, that like many other catapults, they miss the target very often, and this is a problem to evaluate their effectiveness. But yeah, overall, if you're playing in mid difficulty with the enemy units, don't try to dodge your artillery. It can be a very good option, very strong, and almost doom stackable. The Ogre Cannon, for me, even this is a hard choice, but I guess that it's a A tier. It's very strong, the damage itself it's outstanding, and against cavalry, against big monsters. Not that Ogre Kingdoms have a lot of problems against big monsters, but they are a valid choice, and I would suggest to have one of them in any army. Of course, if you're playing against dwarves, probably they are less effective. I mean, if there is a Thunder Badge, maybe. Yeah, I mean, 8 tier unit, so not that essential, not that strong, but still a very valid option. Now let's talk about Ogre Cavalry. I want to be very fast in this section because I don't think that it's worthy a lot of our attention. Ogre Cavalry is very good, very strong, is monstrous cavalry, so expect the double of the damage of the charge, the mass and everything. But the number, sorry, is very small. So if they start to take damage from anti-large specialized units or missile units, they will go down very fast. So their true value for me it's lower than it may look. Let's start from the normal version and even the shielded version. They are just a building of recruitment of difference, but for me they are both C tier. That can be funny to use. I like to use them in thematic armies, but at the same time, I mean, Ogre have other options to fill the same role. If you want to just harass or attack artillery or missile, the vultures and the tigers are more than enough. Otherwise, if you need some anti-infantry damage, there are the Ogre Kingdoms themselves that do a very good job, so you don't need them. Different is the case of the anti-large Mournfang version. In this case, the situation is different because you have some anti-large option that, as I said, in the Ogre Kingdoms is not something that for granted. I mean, Ogre Kingdoms themselves cannot deal with monsters or other monstrous infantry stronger than them, so it's cool to have this fast monstrous cavalry that can chase down heavy cabs, monsters, characters. They're very good at their job. Now for the Rhinox Crusher version, the shielded version for me is another C tier. Far more expensive and far stronger, but with the same problem. So if targeted by missile, they go down very soon. So why you should use them against infantry if there are better options? Different is the case of the Rhinox with anti-large with great weapons. In this case they are A tier units because they are amazing. In the late campaign, when you need specialized units against big colossal monsters or very strong characters, very strong cavalry, they are an amazing choice. They can just be more on the flank, on the rear, or then even charge and sneak around the enemy, but in this case their price and their low number is more justified. Of course, you have always to be careful of missiles and anti-large. Now let's talk about Beast, one of my favorite parts of every roster. Let's start with the Blood Vulture. For me, are overpowered units that actually broke the Ogre Kingdoms game. Before that, they had some weaknesses, but after the Blood Vultures, they don't have anymore. And if you play against the Ogre Kingdoms, you will feel this difference, because now they can they can hit your missile, well protected infantry units, for example, quite well, quite strong. They are not that easy to take down, so you need to protect them with a strong rear guard and so on. They give us a lot of problems if we are playing against Ogre Kingdoms, and at the same time, if we are playing Ogre Kingdoms, they solve everything, any situation. If you need to harass missile to absorb the damage of cavalry, to protect, and then they can move around very easily. They're very fast, they are flying, so the perfect units and quite unique in this roster, so they deserve an OP tier. Different now is the case of the Saber-Tusk, the Tigers of Ogre Kingdoms. If before the Blood Vultures introduction, they would have probably been OP or A tier units, because they are the only very fast harassing units that can hit missile, artillery and all these kind of units. Now with the Blood Vulture, for me, they lost they lost most of their value. So for me, they are a C tier units. Still strong, still helpful, but if you can recruit with the same building, the Blood Vulture, for me, they are not needed anymore in comparison. And yeah, before you say that they are stronger than Blood Vultures and everything, yeah, they are stronger, but they are more number in general, but they have the rampage and they cannot fly, so they are harder to escape some situation. So consider all these things together and you will see why I strongly prefer these birds. The Gorgers are A tier units, and I like them. I like them a lot. They have the Stalk and Vanguard deployment, so they are perfect to sneak around the enemy and attack. They have low number, but they cause fear. I mean, they don't have any big downside, and they're very strong at their role. Of course, don't use them in my opinion, but I mean, as the game suggests, as like in the second line of your front line, or even as your front line. They need to be deployed in the enemy formation to attack from the back, to attack from the side. So use them wisely, otherwise they're not a unit, but they are less. Yetis for me are another A tier units. They are, they are the same price of the Maneater, and they have some, more weapon strength but lesser melee stats. They have the frostbite, but the most important thing is that they have magical attack. And if you are attacking demons and some of the undeads, that they're very helpful. You should really replace all your Ogre Kingdoms roster with all your Ogre monstrous infantry with them. Just get an army of Yetis, because they will deal with the demons far better, I can tell you for sure. So in this case, for this specific role, for me, they are definitely a tier unit, and they're even easy to recruit. You need the basic beast building. So yeah, they have literally no weaknesses, both in the campaign and in the battlefield. Now we arrive to the last part of this roster, the monsters. The Giant, I will tell you clearly to start that for me is a B tier unit. I know that is one of the most hated units in all the game. For me, the most hated are the Cow Spawn, but okay. But I really think that in the right army, they do their job quite well. They are strong, they are tough, they are very hard to take down if you don't have missile. So if you're playing against a Chaos faction, they are amazing. They will not go down easily. They will not go down at all, actually, if there is no missile, or if you take down the missile units with in other ways. They are strong. I really would like you to give another chance if you disagree with my choice. If you use it in the right army, they will perform perfectly. Now we can move to the Stone Horn, a very interesting unit. The normal version for me is a A tier unit. He deserves that. He's a big monster, fast, with collision attacks, and yeah, in the mid-late campaign they are a quite unique and essential option if you want. They were the only unique essential option to deal with many situations, big bunches of infantry or other big monsters, cavalry characters. So yeah, A tier units. Differently for me, for the version with harpoon launcher, you need one tier of building more, and honestly, I mean, for me, are Chaos War Shrine units. I'm very sorry to say that, many people will disagree, but I just don't see the point of recruit one of them. They have this range attack that for the stats it's good, but in the reality of the battlefield they just underperform a lot. They're kind of useless, even because I mean, you will not stay there with your Stonehorn waiting to deal damage. You will charge around everything you have in your face. You don't stay there and throw your harpoon, spear, or whatever. So you're just paying more. You're waiting another tier of building for what? For what's addition? What increase in value? So yeah, for me they're just a unit not worthy to recruit. If you want to have I mean, the best quality army, okay, wait a little more and take it, but I really think that is not worthy that higher price. Now the last unit of this amazing roster, the Thunder Tusk, another and the last overpowered units of this roster. It's I have nothing to say about. I mean, they have Frostbite, they have the Chilling Aura, they are an artillery piece actually effective. Okay, there are many monsters as like the Harpoon Launcher that they have an artillery piece that deals no damage, or I mean, it's not worthy their price. In this case, we have a big ice catapult that destroy heavy infantry, and then you can charge around with this enormous colossal beast. So yeah, even if it's one of the most expensive units in the game, and you have to take into consideration that they are completely worthy their price for the role and everything. So we close the roster like that. Thank you for following me. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you very soon.